There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. This is the second iteration of the Gratitude Cafe. We had a really great response last time. Again, this time a lot of people booked in. And we just wanted to create a safe space to have a conversation about gratitude, but also to help guide people through their gratitude practice. Over the last 2.5 years, what I've been spending most of my waking hours on is understanding gratitude and understanding the practical strategies to help people find more gratitude. And what I found is we have a few challenges. I think one is a culture. We're not completely comfortable with expressing our emotions, and that can impact how likely we are to share gratitude. But sometimes we also aren't quite sure how to do it, or how to get to that really deep level. So the session today is supposed to be a fun, a social event to connect, to take out 30, 45 minutes out of your busy day to refuel and recharge with gratitude. So having said all of that, I think it's due to introduce Nicole Dixon. So I have known Nicole for the last 4 or 5 years. She's currently the CTO or the COO, the COO at a startup here. As she'll share in her story, she gets to travel a lot, but Nicole's definitely someone I've spoken to a lot about gratitude, and is a very grateful person herself, and also just has a lot of fantastic stories, one of which I wanted her to share with us today, about what happens when things go up in flames. So, Nicole, with that, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Maurice. And I'll apologize in advance if my voice gets a bit croaky. This is still a very emotional story for me. But I have a group of friends that we affectionately refer to as the gang. We've been friends since our teens, have shared marriages, divorces, babies. Those babies are grown up now, and we've started the weddings and babies all over again. But they're a very important chosen family for me. One of those friends' family has a farm on the south coast, and we've all been going there for as long as I can remember. Every Easter, camping out. It's a place that we all share. My parents died when I was in my 20s. So over the years, Kath, who's my friend's mother, who owns and runs this beautiful farm, has become like a mother to me. I've gone to her and I've gone to the farm often over the years to spend time, take time out of my crazy busy life, to recover sometimes when I've not been well, and to celebrate. I had my 50th there, which was an amazing 5-day camp out by the river, no electricity, no running water. It was just perfect. Kath's now in her 80s and continues to run that family cattle farm. It's a beautiful farm in the valley, and it's steeped with history and her family heritage. In her 80s, she traded her horse for what is now her Polaris, this little fast go-mobile thing, and she zips around full speed. She's still droving cattle, and she's always been an inspiration and a role model to me, and she's a woman that I greatly admire. At the end of last year, 2019, while spending Christmas with my family in Thailand, the fires hit Australia. And as you're all aware, the south coast was absolutely decimated. We had many family and friends that were at risk, and we were extremely far away from them. So it was a horrible time. The farm that I loved so much was lost in 6 hours, in the early hours of December 31st, which was actually Kath's birthday. Kath's family heritage, her memories, the houses, the farm, it all went up in flames. They were trapped and couldn't get out. Her daughter, my best friend, and her daughter were there and fought the blaze to save their lives. My friend said to me many a time that, she was sure they were goners, but all she could do was to continue to fight and, hope for the best. 6 hours later, it was all over and there was nothing left. All I could think about was that beautiful valley, that wonderful river, the amazing farm that was Kath's everything. Once I got home, it took a while to get up there because all the roads were closed and, we couldn't get access. They were trapped on the farm for about a week, I think. When I finally made it there, though, because there was no other place I was going to be. I needed to be there. I needed to help in my own way. I needed to give back for all the years that Kath and that farm had given me. So I'm getting a bit emotional. I apologize. So I spent 2 months on the farm, slowly cleaning, like the ash and the soot, and it was just black everywhere. It was just amazing. Caring and getting through each day. We had no electricity, no running water. Those things were repaired gradually over time. And I remember when I arrived driving into the valley, I had to pull over and cry because it was just so black and so desolate and crazily quiet. There was no birds, no animals, no nothing. At the start, Kath was in shock, clearly, but she was also very broken. But over the days and weeks, she recovered and she moved forward slowly. And she finally got to the point where she was ready to rebuild and move forward and not walk away like so many other people were doing. Her love for her land and the animals was greater than her loss. Seeing someone lose everything for me was really tough. But the most important thing was the realization that that farm was her career and her personal life all rolled up into one. And that had never occurred to me before because, you know, our careers and our personal lives are often two very separate things. But for her, that farm, her entire life, her family generations, that was their everything. Her courage was inspiring. She said to me one day when we were literally picking through the rooms of one of the old houses to see if there was, you know, anything we could salvage. It was full of history and pictures and memories and letters, and it was just crazy. And I remember her saying to me, she sort of picked up something, I think it was a spur from one of the saddle packs, and she said, "It's all gone, Nicole. I guess they're just things, though. I still have the memories inside me." And that really, really shook me. And she also had an amazing care for the land, which was also inspiring. She, one of the beautiful things that came out of it, she showed me how to set up food stations for the animals. And I remember one of the ones that I set up, this tiny little wallaby who was way too young and too small to be on his own, watched the first day as I laid out water and food and sort of didn't come out. And the next day I went there, he got a bit closer. And each day that I went and took food and water, he'd be waiting for me. And over the 2 months, I saw him grow and become stronger, and gradually all the life started to come back to the farm. You know, the birds returned. So that was quite inspiring as well. But after a couple of months, I would have stayed forever if I could, but I had to return to my life, to my work. So I'd put so much on hold in order to be there, and I was grateful for that opportunity to help out. But a couple of weeks after I turned to Melbourne, COVID hit. Joy. My business professionally is in the global events industry. So we've been decimated by this virus. In 2019, I'd traveled significantly, 7 different countries, running very large scale events all over the world. I felt extremely capable, extremely successful, always returning home to family and friends with these amazing stories of these grand adventures that, you know, I was privileged to have in my life. But COVID brought all of that to a halt. I'm Melbourne based, so I feel like I've been locked in my house in Melbourne since March. Thankfully, I have a garden. My business still sits on a knife's edge. I mean, I'm not quite sure, you know, the future of my career, but through this whole year, I kept thinking of Kath, you know, 88, she lost everything and she's got the courage to rebuild her life, to move forward. And, you know, she amazingly, she can still laugh and still share stories. And I remember that she said, you know, things are just things. And that reminded me that, you know, a job's just a job. And for me, I guess COVID sort of given me this time to reevaluate, to think beyond career success, to think about, you know, my family and the gang and all of those other things that are important to me, you know, if having, you know, seen what she'd been through. So it made me realize that I haven't actually lost anything. Well, nothing that's important anyway. You know, our lives can go up in flames, and she's taught me that, you know, no matter what happens or how old you are, you can pick yourself up and you can actually start again. So that's my story for today, Maurice.
Wow, that is you know, shared with me the outline of it before, but that was amazing. I still remember when you came back in late February, in March, and we're just talking about it, and you'd really come back almost a different person, and some
Oh,
of the
definitely.
realizations that it had. And so glad that you've had the courage and to come on and share it with everyone, knowing that it is a very emotional story for you. So I'm very grateful that you've done that and shared it with everyone today. And I think this is a good place to segue into the next part. And one of the reasons we want to bring in someone to share a story, because it's a powerful way for us to connect with other people, but also to see life through someone else's eyes, to learn from others, to gain some perspective. And what gratitude really is about is perspective. It is the ability to take a step back and to perceive what we have, what is in front of us, in a different way. And today I've curated, and we always use a 4-step gratitude process to help guide us through it. And today I've used the theme of the story, or the core of it, to help guide us through it. So what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to ask everyone, whether it's on pen or paper or wherever you would like to share it, to just write along, and I'll give everyone a couple of minutes for each step. But overall, there are 4 steps to the process. The first one is figuring out, well, what is it that you're grateful for? Second one is about exploring the emotion associated to that. So why is it important to you? The third step is anchoring that moment of gratitude, putting it out there in the real world somehow. And today we're going to go into the breakout rooms and share that. So that's going to be one of the ways you can do that. And then the last part, and often forgotten part about gratitude, is it also creates the desire to want to return the kindness and the favor to other people, to the world at large. So finding an intention, setting some form of intention is really important. So let's start at step number 1 with identifying an object. Look, I think it's fair to say that we've all lost something this year, whether it's just some of our freedoms, our jobs, social connections. We've all gone through a pretty tough year. But I want you to think about something that you managed to realize that has come as an effect from this loss, right? So you might have enjoyed a whole bunch of distractions and freedoms that sort of got you to take something for granted. So I want you to whether it's a person, a moment, something you get to do on a regular basis or don't get to do as much, just want you to identify what it is you're grateful for, and what, suppose, this year and this loss in many ways has taught you that you're grateful about. So I'm going to give everyone a minute just to jot that down, to think about it. So for me, for example, I've grown up in international environments, I've moved every 4 years. So I have uh, a lot of um, friends overseas and internationally. And to be honest, I always took them for granted. I didn't connect with them as much. And one of the things I got the opportunity to do was really to reach out and, through Zoom and Facebook Messenger and all the other tools, reconnect and really have longer 2-3 hour conversations with them. And I'm just really grateful to have these friends all over the world, these international friends that are always still there. So having identified the object, and I know we're sort of going through this process a little bit slow, but it is important to do that and really get into it. This is the next part, is what I reckon is the most important one to spend quite a bit of time on, which is exploring the emotions. It's all great to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm really grateful for my overseas friends, but what does that mean to me, right? So ask yourself, whether it was a person, a moment, your pet, whatever you identified as the object, ask yourself, what does this object bring into your life? What are the gifts, the benefits you get from it? How does it make you feel when you get to enjoy that, when you're part of that? One of the really powerful questions I like to ask myself is, how would I feel if I no longer had this or lost this? Again, realizing that things can go up in flames. It's always good to think about this. Uh, just saw your message, Jetta. All good. Hopefully, we'll see you at the next one. Um, so take a moment now and really think about, what does this object mean to me? Um, Asking why. Why is it important? Whatever you write down, ask why again. Just keep digging further into it. Is really going to help you explore that. And this is it's just such an important part, because when you look at the science, when you look at um, the research behind it, it's when we really get into the emotions that gratitude actually starts having an impact on our life long term. So I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to do that. Jason, thank you for sharing your steps uh, in the chat. This is also what it's all about: sharing that gratitude, seeing how other people are expressing it. We can always learn from others. Loving what you're sharing there. Definitely a lot of thought going into it, which is really good to see. Okay, so just for me, thinking about my overseas friends, um, knowing that they are just a phone call away, or realizing that again, made me feel so much more connected than I ever have before. And I've moved to Australia 4 years ago, and I've met a lot of new people and friends, but quite often I felt still separated. And all of a sudden, I started feeling a lot more connected, and like this tribe, this group of people um, were here with me, that they weren't actually that far. And that the opportunity to get to hear about their lives and connect with them about the things that have been going well and not so well in their life, um, just brought me a lot closer. And it was a great um, yeah way to tie back, I guess, my heritage and my past back into my current life and reconnect those two things. So now, step number 3 is anchoring it. Now, you can do this in many different ways depending on what your preference is, right? Whether you write it, say it, share it, draw it. Maybe Jason, you're a big photographer, so you can snap it. It's really about taking the thoughts and those emotions and converting that into something that's a bit more tangible, that's out in the real world. Um, and today, and again, you don't have to share anything you're not comfortable sharing. But once we jump into the breakout rooms, we do encourage you to share it, because again, it's another way to anchor it, right? By telling someone else, you've made that thought very real all of a sudden. Um, so, and everyone's hopefully writing it down as well. So we've sort of done this step. And now the last part is about setting an intention moving forward. So now that we've realized these gifts, these benefits, the emotions associated with that, the question is, well, what are we going to do with that? How are we going to return that kindness in some way? How are we going to change our own behavior? How are we going to help others? I like, an easy way of thinking about it is what can I do as a random act of kindness for someone I know or a complete stranger? off the back of this. It could also be a lesson, that you implement. I think COVID has taught us all a lot. The question is, well, what happens now that things are opening up, especially if you're here in Melbourne? um, how are you going to take that forward? I often also just set an intention to be a bit kinder and more compassionate to myself, so that I can, again, move that forward. It might be just being a bit more attentive, a bit more present, listening a little bit more to the people you have in your life when you're having a conversation. There are many, many ways to return that kindness. And sometimes we don't always get the opportunity to do so, right? It just doesn't happen. But regularly setting an intention to return the kindness is extremely extremely powerful. So again, I'm going to give everyone a minute to just think of something, and then we're going to send everyone off into some breakout rooms.